Oh, hey there. Come on in. We're just about to start. Welcome to My Wife the Dietitian, a fun weekly podcast about nutrition and healthy lifestyle. I'm Rob, and together with my wife Sandra, we invite you to join us on this informative and entertaining journey through the complex world of healthy eating.
Join us each week as we strive to help you with transforming your overall health and relationship with food through up-to-date, evidence-based nutrition information. Do you have brain fog, feel tired or sluggish, and struggle with losing weight? Have you ever had your thyroid checked? Hypothyroid or Hashimoto's may be a condition that is causing your symptoms. Hashimoto is an autoimmune condition and is the cause of 90% of thyroid dysfunction in developed countries. It's more common in women and affecting more and more younger women. Join us today to learn all about the signs and symptoms of thyroid dysfunction and ways to get help with this condition with our special guest, registered dietitian, Lisha Knicely.
Welcome to My Wife the Dietitian. Hello, Sandra.
Hi, Rob.
How's it going?
Really good.
Awesome. You're very excited about the guest we have today.
That's right. Today we are learning all about thyroid health and dysfunction, and we have a special guest who works with patients who have thyroid conditions. Lisha Knicely is a registered dietitian and integrative and functional practitioner with 9 years of experience and specializes in hypothyroid conditions. She has a passion to help clients in this area as she has a personal story herself.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear all about it.
Lisha understands what it's like to both live with and effectively manage this common yet complex condition. Lisha's approach is comprehensive and holistic in nature, utilizing and emphasizing the immense positive impact that lifestyle and nutritional changes have for managing endocrine and autoimmune conditions. Being a part of and serving this community is a true passion for Lisha, making her work both enjoyable and extremely rewarding.
It sounds like I'm not going to be the only one who is going to be learning today. I bet there's a lot of people who don't know much about this.
I think you're right. I think it's such a common condition, and a lot of people don't even know they have thyroid problems.
Yeah, it's something we've all heard about, but don't really know. So yeah, it'll be good to talk to Lisha. Let's bring her on. Lisha Knicely, everyone.
Hi, Lisha. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Hi, Sandra. Thank you. Yeah, glad to be here.
Excellent. We'd love for you to tell us a bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, of course. My name is Lisha. I am a registered dietitian and an integrative and functional practitioner. And I'm located in the States, and I specialize with working with clients who have thyroid disease. And the main reason I do that is because I also have thyroid disease. I have hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So you have a personal connection with the condition you're helping people with.
Yeah, definitely. It's very personal to me and the reason why I do what I do. And I have actually met quite a few practitioners who tend to specialize in areas that they have been personally affected. So that is me as well. That is part of my story.
Oh, that makes sense. You can really relate well to the people you're working with. So kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah, I think it's given me really good insight into the areas of help, like the lack of care in certain areas and what I desire to be helped with. And it's just giving me that additional perspective and insight, living with it myself, definitely.
Wow. Yeah.
Did you find there was like a lack of service or anything? Like, is that sort of what started your direction?
Oh,
do you know what I mean?
Exponentially. Yes, absolutely. Okay. Yeah. So when I was diagnosed, and I can go into this later, but it was discovered through my primary care physician. And there was just really no explanation, education, any type of guidance around my condition, what to do about it, how to support my body outside of taking thyroid hormone replacement. So wow. At the time I was a dietitian, so I knew about, nutrition and lifestyle is important for pretty much any disease or condition, but sure. I wasn't getting much feedback or guidance, like I said, for what I could do. And that kind of launched me to start exploring and researching and becoming educated myself. But even though there are specialties, like an endocrinologist is the doctor that will specialize for thyroid conditions, it's still very hard to find the right level and amount of support that is required to effectively manage a thyroid condition.
Wow. And there's three types you mentioned. You've got hypo. Is that what you?
Oh, wait. Yeah, Rob, you're getting ahead of the game here.
Oh, is it a game? I'm jumping ahead. I don't.
No, I mean ahead of the interviews, because we'll talk about that. But I think listeners probably want to know like some basics, like what.
Well, Rob wants to know too, because Rob knows nothing about this, so that's why I'm jumping in.
I know, but what about like what is a thyroid in simple terms, and what does it do in the body? So can we start with that, Rob? Is that okay?
That's perfect. Thanks.
Okay,
Yes. No, it's a really good question. So the thyroid is a gland that is located in the neck. It's shaped like a butterfly, so that's why it gets that nickname, the butterfly gland. And it is part of the endocrine system. So it secretes hormones. And a basic way to explain what hormones are they are chemical messengers. And there's communication with glands in the brain, like the pituitary gland, the hypothalamus. They all work in tandem together with communicating with the thyroid to make sure that there are appropriate levels of thyroid hormone in the body to do its function.
That's a really good explanation. That's way better than my high school teacher said it.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
I get it.
Awesome.
That's awesome. Okay. And then, so this is the next one that kind of Rob started to jump ahead of the queue there. Could you briefly explain some of the common thyroid conditions or dysfunctions?
Yes, sure. Yeah. So one of the most common dysfunctions with thyroid disease is hypothyroidism. So this is a term to describe a clinical state of low thyroid hormones in the body or an underactive thyroid. It's the most common thyroid disease. There can also be hyperthyroidism, so an excess of thyroid hormones in the body. And there are underlying causes to both hypo and hyper, but the most common for both is autoimmunity. So autoimmune hypo, which would be Hashimoto's, and then autoimmune hyper, which would be Graves' disease. And then, of course, there can just be other reasons why the thyroid is either over or under functioning.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. I've had patients in the past with Graves' disease, and it's the hyper, right? So they can have that, like kind of their eyes bulging a bit and high heart rate and anxious, kind of nervous, like can't keep weight on because they're like losing weight because their metabolism's too fast.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's, so with what you were going through, it was the hypo or the Hashimoto. And I've seen clients that they come in and they have high cholesterol and they don't fit any kind of, characteristic of someone with high cholesterol because they seem too young. Is that a symptom for the hypo?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because it happened to me actually.
Oh, really?
It did. Yeah. When I was first diagnosed and we discovered, I was going in for some routine lab work, and at the time I was working at a wellness center. So I was kind of learning more about functional, holistic medicine, and I just wanted a good checkup. So I asked my doctor to run pretty much everything that she was willing to run, and came back with severe hypothyroidism and advanced Hashimoto's. And along with that was elevated LDL and total cholesterol. And like I said earlier, I was a dietitian, so I was eating well and I was active and thought things were fine. But what can happen is thyroid hormones play a role in cholesterol metabolism. So if you have low thyroid hormones, you aren't going to have enough of those hormones to help with regulating your cholesterol levels. And once I did get my levels improved, my cholesterol went back to normal. So absolutely, there's a relationship.
Wow.
That is so interesting. So high LDL, the bad cholesterol, and high total cholesterol.
Yeah.
And that was like surprising. Like, were you having symptoms, kind of like vague symptoms that you hadn't really had diagnosed?
Yeah, my story is interesting, or I think it's interesting anyways, because when I was diagnosed, it was very, very clear due to the lab work that I had been living with this for many years, just as far as how advanced it was. And just to give a little reference, my TSH was, the normal range for the lab marker TSH, which is used to diagnose hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism, the normal range is anywhere from 0.5 to about 5. And that's for conventional ranges. Mine was 42.6. So this is anything above 10 is considered overt, significant, and needs to be addressed. So that was it was a huge wake up call. And then my other thyroid markers, there's T4 and T3 that kind of show the actual thyroid hormones. They were very, very low. And then I also had my thyroid antibodies screened, of course, because my doctor was wanting to look into things more at that point. And they were like off the chart, literally off the reference range. They were greater than 1,000. So at this point, I started to reflect, because hindsight is 20/20. So I started to reflect back on how could I possibly miss this working in healthcare, being aware of my health. And I think this happens a lot with women. And I think this happens a lot with busy moms. Not saying it can happen to men too, absolutely, because thyroid or hypothyroid symptoms are definitely overlap with other issues, or we can attribute them to being busy, being stressed. So what I think I did was just attribute it to being a, at the time, busy college student, internship, working multiple jobs, not really, taking care of my body the way I should have. And I was really, really tired. And looking back, the fatigue I felt was so significant that I don't think I realized how bad it was until I started healing and getting the treatment and the care that my body needed. So it was that perspective and the contrast that allowed me to see like things were really bad. And then throughout my whole journey, I discovered many other symptoms and dysfunctions that were actually all correlated back to my autoimmunity and the thyroid issues that I was living with. So I actually don't know how long I have had hypothyroidism or Hashimoto's. I just know that by the time I got diagnosed, I wouldn't be surprised if I was living with it for at least 5 to 8 years prior.
Wow. And you said your symptoms are just kind of disguised by, you just thought it was other things going on with your lifestyle and busy life and that sort of thing. So yeah. And I sometimes I'm like, man, I wish I would have just understood that fatigue or the anxiety or difficulty putting on muscle or difficulty with maintaining a healthy weight, they were all huge red flags that something was up, but not enough for me. I didn't know what I didn't know at the time, being in high school or college. I was completely unaware. And then going into my career and I think my body just did what it could and coped and adapted as well as it could until the signs were so obvious, like my blood work, that, I needed help. I needed support.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah. And that's the other thing. I think when you mentioned that it's more common in women, there is this hormone connection. Is that right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Can you explain that again?
Sure. Yeah. So with women a couple things actually. So autoimmunity is much more common across the board in women. A few reasons why that may be, or why we believe that, can be the hormone makeup between men and women are very different due to, estrogen and testosterone levels. And then also our immune systems might be different. And there are also events that women go throughout their life that men don't. When it comes to pregnancy, postpartum, perimenopause, those are significant swings that occur hormonally that can actually contribute to the development of thyroid issues or even autoimmunity. And estrogen does play a big role with this, even being on the birth control pill. And that level of estrogen can start to influence other hormones too.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I've said to Rob so many times that women are not robots. We definitely are like.
I don't know why you've said that.
Well,
you're making me look bad now.
No, sorry, but it's just it's like the cycle, and it's it depends on what's happening with our hormones in our body, and that affects like how we're feeling like overall, and our gut health and our level of energy and all that. And then if you layer on a thyroid imbalance or condition, wow, that can just really throw things off. and into a way that like what happened with you, where you didn't even realize there was a problem because you're just kind of coping with the daily chaos of life and stress and multiple jobs and being a student and, all those things. And so many people are in that boat. Like there's just women, there's so many pressures on women. And, and then to layer on a hormone condition and a thyroid issue like that is just, it makes a lot of sense. And I'm so glad that we're talking to you today because I really, definitely want to point people in the direction of your resources and your services and support that you can offer if people have, if they're looking for support, if they do have any of these conditions or feeling like they might. I mean, if somebody feels like they have some of these symptoms you're explaining, what should they do? Like, should they if it's someone local here in Canada, West Coast, like what would they do versus like anyone? I mean, what should they do first if they are thinking they have these symptoms?
Yeah, that's a good question. I usually first encourage people to make a detailed list of all of their symptoms. And if they can, even better would be to make a timeline because at the end of the day, you know your body best. So, be detailed about it, document it, and then go to your doctor. It could be, your primary, it could be an OB, it could be an endocrinologist if you've gotten to that point for a referral, but asking for, describing your symptoms and saying, I think it could be my thyroid because X, Y, and Z. And most of the time doctors will run a TSH, which stands for thyroid stimulating hormone. And sometimes they might also check T4, which is the inactive thyroid hormone. And that can be helpful if things are a little bit more significant, but it won't unfortunately catch earlier signs of thyroid dysfunction. For example, you can have the elevated thyroid antibodies for many years before hypothyroidism develops. So you can miss the fact that you actually might be living with autoimmunity if you don't run those specific markers. So I'll tell people, and I have a free guide that goes through all of this, but ask for the specific markers. They are thyroid peroxidase antibodies and thyroglobulin antibodies, especially if you have a family history of thyroid issues or of autoimmunity. It's going to be really important to, that puts you at a higher risk for developing and being a woman. And I would say, at one time a women, between 40 and 60, but now it's, unfortunately we're seeing autoimmunity younger and younger, like children and teens. So It's not exclusive to that age group anymore. So if you have some of these risk factors, genetics, age, gender, it's absolutely worth taking these concerns to your doctor. And at the very least, if it's not thyroid, at least you ruled it out. But the thyroid it's I don't want to say it's sensitive, but it can be influenced and impacted by other issues going on too. So it's not uncommon to see thyroid issues, be coupled with other issues too, whether it's PCOS or other autoimmune conditions. Definitely go to your doctor, start getting answers. There are conventional doctors, but there's other options too, whether it's integrative or a functional or a naturopath, whoever you feel comfortable with and is willing to work with you to investigate and you guys are on the same page. That's what I feel is important.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And that's really good direction for people to next steps. Mm-hmm. Now with, in terms of treatment and helping the symptoms and kind of living a better life with less of these, symptoms, explain what you did and what you recommend for people. I don't know, I'm sure there's not a standard approach, but what are some of the kind of high level treatment and symptom management ways?
Yeah. So I like sharing my story because I can actually tell people what not to do because when learn from my mistakes. But when I was first diagnosed, like I said, my TSH was significantly elevated. And when you are in that position, this is not a time to fight taking medication. I think at this point, I really wasn't fully aware of how significant my diagnosis was and how much my body needed help. And I just, for some reason, had this mindset that I wanted to try some natural changes first to see if I can improve my TSH and then begin medication. So I was diagnosed in 2017 in May, and I didn't actually start medication until September. So for me, that was not the best thing. And the reason is if you are in a clinical state of hypothyroidism, you need to replace that with thyroid hormone replacement, and that is prescription medication. It's going to be difficult to make progress in other areas until you are in a euthyroid state or your ranges are improved and optimized. Thyroid hormones are essential for pretty much every system in the body. So you're not doing yourself a favor if you need medication by refusing it, which is what I did. Foolishly, I wasn't aware. For some reason, my primary too didn't push back. She was like, sure, yeah, you can try nutrition and supplements and we'll check back in a few months. But really, I needed to be medicated right away. Not saying you can't start medication and then at the same time work through diet and lifestyle changes, but number one is you want to make sure that you are optimizing your thyroid levels. And the reality is most people with hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's at some point will need medication. A lot of people initially, when they speak with me or come to me, they tell me, I don't want to be on prescription drugs. I want to avoid them. And I kind of remind them that thyroid hormones, one, like I just said, super important, but it's not a prescription drug like other prescription drugs. It is hormone replacement. And we know hormones are very, very vital for a healthy body, healthy mind. So yes, it might feel like a bummer sometimes if you have to start a medication that you might need long term. But if it's going to help you feel your absolute best and be part of your healing puzzle and your healing journey, then do that for yourself. You're not helping yourself by refusing something that your body needs. And if you are in a position where your thyroid gland is not producing adequate amounts for whatever reason, you will need to be on the medication. So that is definitely number one, is be open to the fact that you might have to start medication. And then also, this is something else I usually I educate on with my clients, is there are options for types and forms and brands of thyroid medication, and not one single type is going to work super well for everyone. So that's another thing that you can have a conversation with your doctor about, is asking about the types that are available in the forms. And because most doctors will just give a synthetic T4, so Synthroid is very, very common, and don't even discuss the other options. And I think that that's, not the best way about it, because we are all unique and we all have different needs for the type of replacement we're going to thrive on.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I've seen so many patients on Synthroid, and it's just the kind of most common, I think, eh?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then, so if someone's on the medication, can they just say, okay, I don't need to change anything with my lifestyle? Or what would your approach be? I guess it's individual, but are there some things that people can do in their life to help themselves in addition to the medication?
Absolutely. I think that is one mistake. Not that people do it on purpose, but that is made often with people who have thyroid disease, is they have low thyroid hormones, they get on hormone replacement, their levels normalize, and they're like, I'm good to go. But most people do soon, realize that their symptoms are still there, even though their lab work is looking pretty good. And again, this is something that happened to me as well. They still are struggling with some of, and I can list some of the common symptoms: weight loss, resistance, and weight gain, very, very common, fatigue and exhaustion, depression, anxiety, brain fog, hair loss, dry skin, constipation. These are all very, very common symptoms of hypothyroidism. And I have a lot of people come to me and say, I'm on medication, my labs are normal, but I'm still dealing with, a whole list of symptoms. So that's why I believe it's so important to also get the correct diagnosis and understand, okay, is this Hashimoto's hypothyroidism or is it just hypothyroidism? And more often than not, it's going to be Hashimoto's. It is about 90% of people with hypothyroidism in developed countries where iodine deficiency is not a factor, it will be due to Hashimoto's and autoimmunity. So that's going to give you more information and more answers about your body. So then you can know, okay, yes, your thyroid is being impacted, but it's not just a thyroid issue anymore. It's an immune system issue. And that is a lot harder to treat, unfortunately, than just taking thyroid medication. So this is where we're looking into nutrition and lifestyle and your mental health and your stressors, your environment. Like, so many things can influence the balance of your immune system and cause symptoms with autoimmunity. So there is no single protocol or approach, and there is no cure for autoimmune diseases, but you can make the right changes to mitigate and support your immune system. And ideally, we're looking to get into remission where your lab work is stable. There's not this autoimmune reactivity. Your symptoms are pretty much managed and reversed. That is the ideal for people who are living with Hashimoto's.
Yeah, so it's lifelong, and it is an autoimmune disease. So it's about trying to keep things in balance in terms of lifestyle, your sleep, your stress, your diet, your movement. That will help. Those will all help with the brain fog and all the symptoms that you might have been experiencing with everything going on. And even if you get your thyroid in better condition, you still have to keep your lifestyle kind of balanced.
Yes, that's correct. Definitely.
Hey, Lisha, how fast, once you start doing the therapy, the drugs or whatever, how fast do things improve? Like, what's the course of getting better look like?
Yeah, so every case is different. That's going to be my answer for a lot of things. But when it comes to, if you're like starting thyroid hormone replacement or maybe adjusting your medication, typically they will recheck your levels 6 to 8 weeks later. So it does take a little bit of time to notice the changes on paper, at least with your lab work. As far as how you feel, that can vary significantly. Some people do feel better within a few weeks. Other people, it does take months to have noticeable changes. But it also depends on, is that person, are they also making dietary and lifestyle changes, or are they just, doing the medication? So that's also going to determine how well you feel and the progress that you're making too.
Right.
Right. And then in your case, you didn't take the medication for 6 months, and you tried lifestyle changes, but it just didn't impact the thyroid level, I guess.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, my TSH, I did some supplements. I did looking into some diet changes, and my TSH did come down, but not anywhere close. Like, I was still in the danger zone. Like, I did, need medication, and I still do. But yeah, unfortunately, it wasn't enough to get my body where it needed to be. Now, for some people, again, it depends on the stage where you're diagnosed. For some people, if it's early stages, they might have the antibodies and what we call like silent Hashimoto's, where the antibodies are positive or elevated, but their TSH is normal, their thyroid hormones are looking good. This is an earlier stage where maybe the inflammation hasn't impacted your thyroid gland or damaged it enough to the fact where you might not need medication at this point, and other nutritional lifestyle interventions can be a tool to keep things at bay and keep things in a good place. So that's why I do really advocate for proper lab work and screening when you start to notice something is off and symptoms are coming up.
Oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think the diagnosis really helps with figuring out the plan after that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what? Oh, sorry.
Just going to ask, the medication, is that a forever thing, or once your body kind of gets back to normal, are you able to get off of it at any time or reduce it? Or
yeah, it depends. I have known some people where like I said, their thyroid gland is still pretty well functioning and intact, and they're able to get off medication if they get their Hashimoto's into remission. So other people where they don't have Hashimoto's and they figured out why, the cause of their underactive thyroid, and they corrected that and addressed it, and then their thyroid can function to the level it needs to. So yeah, some people can get off medication and may not need it for their life, but unfortunately, it's not the norm. Like I said earlier, a majority of people will require some level of thyroid hormone support.
Right. Because the medication is basically replacing something that your body isn't making. Is that?
Yes. Yep.
What it's
So
doing,
most,
right?
Yeah, most thyroid medications are either synthetic or natural versions of the T4 hormone, which is inactive. So
Right.
we take that, and our body does need to convert it into the active form. So yeah, if your thyroid gland is not producing enough, you do replace it with the medication.
Gotcha.
All right. And then I was wondering what foods are good for thyroid health?
Yes, question I get all the time. So it's a
Well,
good
I'm
one.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
What's the
there,
magic answer, right? What's the magic food?
Right. I wish I had that for you, but there is no single thyroid supportive diet or thyroid diet. It really is going to be figuring out what works for you. This might be a boring answer, but honestly, if you can follow a whole foods diet, reduce processed foods, sometimes for some people, like a paleo style works very well because it does remove some of these dietary triggers when we're speaking of Hashimoto's from your meal plan or from your diet. And those can be gluten or grains, dairy, excess sugar, again, those processed foods. But I really focus on a nutrient dense diet with my clients and high in antioxidants. Again, because most of my clients have Hashimoto's, we're looking for ways that we can support their antioxidant levels since we know there's already a case of excess chronic inflammation going on. So we want to do whatever we can to support their bodies, lower that inflammation. And a great way you can do that is through how you eat and what you eat and when you eat. So I'm a big fan of, whether it's Mediterranean style in a sense, or like I said, paleo can be a pretty easy template to follow. And then beyond that, customizing it for what works for you. I've had people with, they have more food sensitivities or allergies that they have to kind of work with, or other people can be more flexible with their diet, but maybe it's only one or two things that they remove from their diet for their personal health.
All right. And is iodine kind of a key factor in thyroid health? That's a question I get from people.
Yeah, that's a really good question because I see a lot of misinformation online, social media.
Really,
even
you
with
see
like
misinformation online.
Yeah, I know, right? Crazy.
It's so rare.
Who would have thought? Even like supplements, and I'll give a little story about that in a moment. But so yes, the thyroid uses iodine to create thyroid hormones. It's an essential mineral, meaning our body can't create it. We have to get it in our diet. But the problem is most people naturally get iodine, like the amount that they need from their diet alone. We don't typically need supplementation. The only caveat would be pregnancy, breastfeeding, that period of time. Yes, more iodine can be helpful. If you don't have Hashimoto's, iodine supplementation might be okay, whether it's from what you're finding in your multivitamin or maybe a thyroid support. But the problem is with Hashimoto's, iodine actually can trigger autoimmunity, or it can cause autoimmune activity if you're having iodine in excess. The thyroid actually needs a very small amount of iodine to function and utilize hormones and create them. But some of these supplements that I see on the market, they have, 10 times the amount that is actually going to be needed. And it can cause significant symptoms, sometimes a flare. So I always tell people with Hashimoto's, be very cautious. I would look at, what are you eating in your diet? Are you getting enough iodine there? Probably, especially with iodized salt. And then look at your supplements. Most multivitamins have 150 micrograms, but that's typically more than people might need with autoimmune thyroid disease specifically. So
good to know. I actually checked our multivitamin and it had 166 micrograms.
Yeah. And if you don't have Hashimoto's, like I said, then that's probably fine. That's the daily value that's recommended. But with Hashimoto's, sometimes there's even been research to support that iodine restriction can be therapeutic. So because we do, like I mentioned, we get a lot from dairy, from eggs, from iodized salt, processed foods, even processed like bread products, things like that. And seafood and sea vegetables are very high in iodine as well. So most people aren't lacking, especially in developed countries.
Interesting. Wow. So yeah, it's kind of a similar advice in terms of just whole minimally processed diet that I was hearing, and just trying to get that balance and variety. And but for some people, like taking a supplement wouldn't be a good idea, and that's what I guess they should check with their healthcare provider on the direction for that.
I just wanted to share this example because I saw it the other day and I thought it was kind of amusing. But there was this workshop I saw, and it had for a new product for your metabolism, and it was all for weight loss. And I looked at the ingredients, and one of the ingredients was 220 micrograms of iodine.
Ooh.
And if they're advertising this for people with, weight loss issues like hypothyroidism, and because we know Hashimoto's is the most common cause of hypothyroidism, someone may unknowingly take this supplement, but giving themselves that iodine exposure every single day, and it can do more harm than good. So that's why, working with a healthcare practitioner who's knowledgeable about your conditions can be really helpful to make sure you're not making these mistakes. And, I actually made this mistake, surprisingly, at one point too, under the guidance of a different naturopathic doctor. And I think it was an honest mistake, because I still see different practitioners even giving high doses of iodine to Hashimoto's clients. And from what I understand in the research, that is just not what should be done. I'm sure there are certain cases potentially, but again, that's why individualized care is going to be really, really important to make sure you're doing what's right for your body.
Absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. And it's amazing that can be on the shelf, something that has that much iodine and could be actually harming a certain segment of the population if they're maybe not diagnosed with it, and they want to lose weight and they're wondering why, and they haven't had any blood work or any consultation about their thyroid function. And wow, that's it's amazing, eh? That's why this information is so helpful, and it's really important, just like you said, there's so much misinformation out there, and obviously availability of supplements on the shelf that might actually not be helpful for you. They might actually be harmful. So yeah, it's, I think, getting more information from your doctor and healthcare provider about what's going on for yourself is key to help with diagnosis and figuring out symptoms and all that. So, I really appreciate that you came and talked to us today. We have a question that we ask all our guests, and it is, what potluck item or meal or dish would you bring to a family gathering if you were going?
Oh, that's a good question. Believe it or not, I am not the cook in our family. My husband is.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yes, I know. I have been spoiled and lucky to have a husband who loves to cook, and he's very talented at it. So he can make pretty much any dish, which, like I said, I am very lucky. But lately, we have actually been enjoying making macarons. So, yeah, we love our baking as well. And the nice thing is that they are naturally gluten-free. So that's something else. People with Hashimoto's, gluten and wheat can be something that can be helpful to avoid. So we like to look for things that still taste good, but don't have wheat or gluten when we're looking for a treat or something delicious like that. And yeah, he makes really good macarons. So I think that's what we would bring, or I would have him make it, and then I would. Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
That's awesome.
We're gonna have a recipe book full of all our guests' dishes.
Yeah.
So that'll be a good addition to the dessert.
Yeah, definitely. I love that idea.
He'll have to send us his recipe.
Okay. All right.
That's good. So yeah.
Was there anything else, Lisha, you wanted to mention before we cut out here?
I think, one thing I'll say to anyone out there living with thyroid disease, I think one of the things that I see often and experienced is it can feel very isolating, because not many people understand when you say you feel very tired. It's that level of exhaustion and fatigue is metabolic related. It's at the cellular level. It's different than just having a poor night's rest. And it can feel isolating to not be understood or maybe even dismissed by your own doctors, or your family members don't quite get it. So I just want to say, like, I see you, I get it. You're not alone. This is such a common, condition that many, many people live with, and finding a community, finding other people you can talk to, I think can relieve some of that burden and provide hope. And just, it's really nice to feel validated when you've been living with a certain condition for however long. And just don't give up. Keep seeking. There's plenty of great resources and healthcare providers out there, and social media does have some good things to offer too. Just like information and, like I said, forums and community can be helpful when done well. So just keep seeking the best support for you, because it's out there.
That's awesome.
Oh, yeah. And speaking of social media, you're on Instagram. Is that right? On
yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's and you have a website and Facebook. And so it's let us know how people can reach you.
Yeah, I would say Instagram's probably the easiest, because I have everything kind of connected to my Instagram profile. I have a lot of free education, free resources, and then also info about my services and program is all there.
Oh, that's awesome. And it's Lisha, like it's like Alicia, but without the A, like Lisha.
Yes.
Okay, Lisha Knicely. And we'll have all your links and information about your services and your website, your Instagram, your Facebook in the show notes, so that people, if they have interest and they want to get some freebies and look you up, then and connect with you, then they can do that through the show notes.
Awesome. Yeah, that'd be great.
Good. Awesome, okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on today and giving so much good, valuable information to the listeners. It's and to us. It was really inspiring to hear all what you've been through and how you can help people.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. I really appreciate it. I will never pass up an opportunity to spread awareness and educate about thyroid health. And if you ever want me back for round 2, I'm game.
Right
yes,
on.
Please. Awesome. We will definitely take you up on that offer. That's so good, Lisha. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I bet there'll be a lot of interest in this episode. I think there's probably a lot of people who are like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know that," and they'll be tuning in for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, good. Well, thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Lisha.
Wow, that was a really great interview, eh?
It totally was. She's really knows her stuff, really well spoken. You could tell she's talked about this a lot and is quite passionate about it. And it's amazing that she's, it's helpful that she's experienced it herself. So it's coming from firsthand, she's got firsthand knowledge, firsthand experience, which helps.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you can just hear the passion. And I think her information was so comprehensive and informative. I bet this interview will help guide people to seek help for their own symptoms.
For sure. I
really hope people check out her website and look at the resources she has to offer.
I can see having her back if we get some questions, and just, I've already got questions after listening to it, and it's like, oh, I should ask her this and that. And I'm sure other people will feel the same. So
yeah, we'll write them down and send them to us, and let's have her back in the future.
Yeah, it'd be good to talk to her again. Absolutely.
That was a great interview.
All right. So that's it for this week. Check out our Facebook page. Don't forget to check out Lisha's Instagram, I guess, is her main thing. So hit her up on Instagram, see what she's all about. And also visit our Instagram and YouTube page as well, our social media, our website, email. If you have questions, it's mywifetherd@gmail.com. And look for the Nutrition Nuggets coming out Wednesday. Yeah.
Sounds good. Thanks so much.
All right. Have a good week, everyone. Thanks for joining us today on My Wife, the Dietitian. If you like what you heard, don't be shy. Leave us a comment or review, and be sure to share our podcast with your friends. If you'd like to hear more, hit that subscribe button. You can also follow us on our social media pages for updates, episode trailers, and other odds and ends. For more info and links on what we discussed on today's episode, check the show notes. We'll be back next week with another informative and fun-filled episode.